2023. It was a heck of a year for Metroidvanias, am I right? We got some MVs inspired by other MVs, some incredibly innovative MVs that pushed the genre's definition to its limit, and we even got a really cool 3D MV that may be the template for more really cool 3D MVs to come. Metroidvania fans were eating pretty good this year, all the more reason to be excited for next year. But before we shift our eyes and our insatiable appetites for exploration toward the horizon, let's take a moment to reflect on the past year's best Metroidvanias. Hey, I'm the Metroidvania Guru, and this is the top 10 Metroidvanias released in 2023.
Number 10.
You know what Metroidvanias need? More hell. And bullets. So many bullets that the denizens of hell would shiver beneath the icy lead shade cast by the sheer amount of bullets flying overhead. What sort of insane protagonist would dare endeavor into such a savage arena of their own volition? Surely it'd be a protagonist so intimidating, so menacing, that the very sight of such a domineering beast would cause our knees to shake and our bowels to move. Despite being described as a bullet hell Metroidvania, Tevy might be the most adorable MV on the market. With its excellent pixel art, cute chibi style, and exquisite anime-inspired stills and portraits, Tevy is a vibe. With lots of potions and sigils to collect and lots of wacky characters to meet, you're going to be exploring the land of Az for a long time. And because our little bunny girl's so customizable, there's lots of ways to play. And if you get overwhelmed by all the bullets, you can always just run home and cry into your bed to lower the difficulty. We won't judge. Unless you stare at some of these furries for too long.
Number 9.
Metroidvania Guru.
What is best in life?
Barbarian games are pretty cool.
That is good.
Not many Metroidvanias let me live out my dream of being a barbarian fighting a sexy lesbian vampire and a buff snake monster. Thankfully, Eldoran's here to make my dreams come true. Dubbed a Microvania only by me and literally just now for the first time ever, Eldoran proves that dynamite comes in small packages. It does more in its relatively short 5 to 6 hour runtime than some Metroidvanias do at double the size. Granted, Eldoran doesn't innovate and plays things a little too safe and familiar, but it's still a solid ride through and through. Anything you think a good Metroidvania experience should do or have, Eldoran does it and has it. Lots of biomes, lots of enemy variety, lots of secrets, lots of weapons, and multiple endings rewarded to intrepid explorers. If you haven't tried Eldoran and call yourself a Metroidvania enthusiast, you really need to give this game a go. You'll be surprised at how this compact adventure can pack in so much MV goodness. And ritual sacrifices.
Number 8.
In a desolate, dystopian world, there awaits a Metroidvania genre combination so bizarre, so unique, that it needs its own subgenre to accurately describe it. The Motorvania.
To cover for a lifetime.
Mixing Mad Max with Excitebike, Leica, aged through blood, is a truly distinctive and neat experience. And this experience? It pulls no punches. Leica is a brutal game set in the middle of a violent gang war that introduces you real quick to what happens if you're caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Not only is its introduction tough to stomach, but the rest of the game does little to make you feel welcome. One-hit kills is on the menu, so prepare to die over and over again. If not from the bird's bullets, then from not angling your landing properly. Thankfully, Leica gives you lots of fun abilities and maneuvers to help along your journey, like the ability to block bullets with your bike, reflect bullets back at a-holes, and bullet time, which I used more to help me land than I did to actually shoot things. But what's all this without a little style? Apart from looking badass, flipping mid-air recharges your bullets and reflection ability, adding some really cool strategy and positioning to combat. What's not badass? Dying while going 0 miles an hour. Accompanying this sweet combat is an excellent atmosphere. The setting, the characters, the viscera, and that music. Man, that music.
I hear it calling deep down in my dream.
Leica is an incredible and relatively short game that every gamer should experience. Just be careful not to lean too far back while popping a wheelie.
Number 7.
Revenge. It's a powerful motivator for protagonists and antagonists alike. But if your desire for vengeance is so all-consuming that you neglect to learn how to read, you might want to reevaluate your priorities. Vernal Edge's Vernal is a hothead with only one thing on her mind: killing her science nerd of a father. Fortunately, she has the skills to do it. Vernal's mobility is extremely quick and responsive, and she has traversal abilities I haven't seen in other MVs, so you know the platforming in this game is as good as it is unique. And combat's just as great. Enemies can be a little too spongy, and having a little more variety would have gone a long way. But the amount of attacks and spells Vernal can pull off ensures combat stays fresh and stylish. And some of the late game bosses will absolutely trash you if you don't get the parry down. Exploration's always interesting with all the PS1 style floating islands to visit. I've heard complaints about how confusing Vernal Edge is to start because it's so open and offers zero guidance, but I mean, come on. The islands have a threat level indicator. That's a pretty big clue on how you should approach them. Maybe Vernal isn't the only one who doesn't know how to read.
Number 6.
The dead are constantly reminded of their time away from this life, hiding in the shadows of the moon. Yet I will not be their prey any longer, but their hunter.
The Last Faith's launch was a little rough, but the devs have started patching things up nicely. There's now differences of equipment between starting classes, at least on the PC version. And I heard they nerfed my sword, the sons of bitches. But it's all good, because The Last Faith is such a solid game that ticks off all the right Metroidvania boxes. Interesting NPCs, great atmosphere, decent story, amazing exploration, grotesque and varied enemy designs, fun combat, cool bosses, and an addicting leveling system that encourages character builds. Yeah, it may lean a little too much on its inspirations, but that didn't stop me from enjoying it any less. And with DLC coming down the pike, there's going to be plenty of reasons to check back with this game.
You bring a dangerous affliction before me.
Number 5.
If I had a nickel for every Metroidvania that starred a lesbian android, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's awesome that it happened twice. Cookie Cutter's intro freaking broke me. I'm not going to show it here, but wow, that's an absolutely brutal way to start a game. And once it gets started, boy, does it get going. This game's violent, very violent, and I like it. Mostly because I'm a sadistic weirdo, but mostly because I like the combat. Every hit feels and looks weighty, and you get to fight a lot. The game likes to lock you in enemy-filled arenas and rewards you when you clear them, just like in Guacamelee. And you can heal yourself with a meter that fills up as you attack, just like in Hollow Knight, by using Void, which is used differently in this game, but still. And you can refill your Void drastically by doing executions, just like in Blasphemous. Yeah, Cookie Cutter takes a lot of inspiration from a lot of places, but it has a unique style all its own. Its animation juxtaposed with the over-the-top violence reminds me a lot of stuff I watched on MTV's Liquid Television as a kid. And its hand-drawn comic book style brings it all together nicely. And the characters, they, is that? That's a floating vagina, isn't it?
Number 4.
Oh no, a game inspired too much by Hollow Knight, whatever will I do? Who cares? Lone Fungus is awesome. And how's come people don't talk more about how it takes some cues from Mega Man? You beat a boss, you get a spell cap based on their power, and you change colors? Nice. If you like Hollow Knight, you're gonna love Lone Fungus. It's similar in atmosphere and combat, and its emblems act like charms, but Lone Fungus also brings a lot of its own stuff to the table. Mainly, its abilities and platforming. Platforming in Lone Fungus is so good, and it can get really challenging with the platforming sections that hide some of the game's more interesting rewards. With amazing mobility, lots of movement options to master, and its nice pixel art aesthetic, the underground never looked and felt so good. Even though you're trying to leave it and get to the surface the whole time. Because stone statues told you so? Do you think green cap might be one of those mushrooms?
Number 3.
You know what makes a good Metroidvania? A good hook. You get it? Because Fern uses a grappling hook in the game. The game's Rusted Moss, by the way. Rusted Moss was a huge surprise for me. I had no idea I was going to get so enthralled in a game I really wasn't paying attention to pre-launch. But it has everything I like. A dystopian backdrop, a fascinating story, a dire atmosphere with a pixel art aesthetic, and guns! I'm not the biggest fan of twig-stick shooters, but Rusted Moss's combat works well, mostly because I really liked the platforming. Not only is the level design superb, but traversal feels nice and rewarding. And that brings us back to the grappling hook. It functions just like how a grappling hook should, but it also has some elasticity to it, making it feel more like a rubber band. Mastering your rubber band hook shot not only feels great, but it can lead to some fun sequence breaking if you're good enough. Platforming on the critical path is never too challenging, but going off the beaten path to do some of the optional rooms is gonna test your platforming mettle. But if the game becomes too much for you, there's some accessibility options you can use to get you through the game with ease, like invincibility and flying. I'm not gonna judge you for using them, but Puck over here sure does have a judgmental eye, the jerk.
Number 2.
Blasphemous II, to nobody's surprise, is an excellent Metroidvania and a worthy continuation of the Penitent One's story. In fact, Blasphemous II fits the mold of Metroidvania much more cleanly than its predecessor. The level design's improved, as has the platforming thanks to new traversal abilities, and combat's been enhanced with multiple weapons at the Penitent One's disposal. The boss's lore and atmosphere have taken a huge downgrade, but gameplay-wise, Blasphemous II is the superior Blasphemous game, and its exploration is just as great as its combat. There are lots of things to find and side quests to achieve, and most of these tasks build towards getting the game's true ending, and you gotta love that. It's just a little weird you're killing all these pointy-headed weirdos so you can do a celestial abortion, but that's Blasphemous for you. Weird.
Number 1.
A lot of you may not agree with Afterimage being at number 1, but there's a perfectly good reason why it's placed here. It's my list. Seriously though, Afterimage is the Metroidvania fans' Metroidvania. It takes every aspect that makes an MV excellent and dials it up to 11. And this is Afterimage's greatest weakness, besides its convoluted plot. If you're a diehard MV connoisseur, you're gonna love this game. However, if you just casually play MVs, you're probably gonna find this game overwhelming. MV vets will love Afterimage's enormous, open, non-linear world and have a blast exploring it, while more casual players will hate the lack of guidance and feel lost or like they're wasting their time. So, if you're not a Metroidvania fanatic like me, I can see why you wouldn't dig Afterimage. But for me and all other MV freaks out there, dedicating the 30+ hours needed to get all 10 endings was well worth it. There's just so much to find and collect, and the fact that the game is absolutely gorgeous keeps you motivated to explore and find it all. Plus, the combat and platforming is great, the enemy variety is massive, and the bosses are challenging and fun to fight. Of all the MVs released this year, Afterimage was the hardest to put down, and that's why it's the number 1 Metroidvania released in 2023.